Hi there. Thanks for listening to the other video. I thought I'd post another one. The guy from the chief of the IPCC, the guy I shook hands with in Copenhagen recently, now says that in 2010 the skeptic attitude towards climate change will only increase, building upon the ruse and the lies that they spread about the East Anglia emails. And that's a dreadful and very sad result of the Copenhagen meeting, because if it hadn't occurred, that would not have been in the media so much. That story about emails in East Anglia about I don't know, fudging the numbers or whatever they made up. The lies have been repeated often enough for people to adopt them as a truth, and that's a very sad thing. Because it just means that all the measures that are in place or are being developed to fight climate change, that are direly necessary to prevent further catastrophe, will be implemented later. Because one of these days, sometimes, whatever you think about climate change now, whether you believe it or not, you'll see the effects. You will start noticing it. And everybody that says that the cold weather at the time, at this moment, is proof that that global warming is not happening, they should also know that the cooling in one area means that it gets warmer in another. And in Alaska it's much warmer than usual. Even if it's minus 30 degrees, it used to be minus 35 degrees, and that's a big difference. That's a huge difference actually. And it appears more plausible to me. There was a guy who is the Secretary of the Parliament of the Mediterranean Sea, which is an organization that combines the governments of the Mediterranean countries. He said that the Mediterranean Sea temperature was increasing by 2 degrees already. And that sounded a little bit implausible and a little bit exaggerated to me, but you can clearly see that there are differences of several degrees in some areas of the world, which are related to different climate patterns and global warming. Anyway, I heard a remark about all the money that's been shoved around, and we'll see it here in Europe at the moment, because Greece is in big trouble, and it's now contesting the numbers that are spread about their whether they are true or not. And the OECD is putting out numbers, and we know how reliable that institution is. It's really very hard to trust any government number. But that's not a problem actually. I don't think it is, because somebody said this week, we should just let people make money. And that's exactly what I believe is the best option in an economy, is let people make money. And the way I approached it is through this bartershares.com bartering system, where the moment you want to sell something, you create a certificate that gives somebody the right to take ownership of it, and then you trade that certificate in the market. And that certificate has exactly the value of the asset that you're holding, whether it's a service or stuff. And the moment that that service or stuff is being consumed or traded, the money, which is the certificate that is used in the trade, disappears again. So it kind of evaporates, it dissipates. The moment you get, let's say, the positive and the negative electron or whatever, and they melt together, the money disintegrates. And that's exactly the way money should work. I thought about it for a very long time, because money is is a well, it's a very strange thing. And if it has intrinsic value like gold and silver, metals, palladium, platinum. I heard that lead was actually the metal that increased in value the most the last 10 years. But anyway, then of course that's a tradable commodity, and that's something else than let's say the fiat type of money, or the certificate type of money, or the representational type of money that we have with which we used to have, which has turned into fiat currency. So we used to have let's say a bill for a bar of gold at the Smith safe, and we could use that as money because it represented that bar of gold, or that ounce of gold, or whatever it was. And then the banks started defrauding us and saying that they had 10 times as much money as they actually have. That's such a very deep deception that everybody keeps accepting, is that banks can pretend to have more money than they actually have. That means that they can take possession and ownership and control more assets in the society than they have a real right to because of what they own. So let's say I own 10 euros, I can control 100 euros of assets because I can buy them and I can sell them even if I don't have the euros. So it's a crazy situation with those banks. But if people make the money themselves, then I think things correct themselves very easily. And even in Europe, with the euro, with the huge differences in value of the euro, where let's say the buying power of a euro in Greece or Turkey is higher than the buying power in Holland, that would even out because people would trade and transport stuff so that would work, because it would be motivated by the fact they could make a profit. I can buy trousers in Turkey and sell them in Holland, and I make money. And I can do that as long as the trousers in Turkey are cheaper than those in Holland. And the big distorter is of course the government that starts, because you know what you're depending on then is a distributed crowdsourced valuation system. I like the word crowdsourced, I'll use it a lot. So basically every individual in Europe determines the value of the euro of the moment they spend it. See, if you freely spend money, the money, even if it's fiat currency, attains the value, the real value that's economically viable. And if there's big difference in the economy, let's say France has a lot of wine, so it's very cheap in France, and Holland has no wine at all, so it would be very expensive, then people start taking wine from France to Holland, and that will even out the price eventually of one bottle of wine. It will cost exactly the same as it in France as it does in Holland, which is the case actually. If you go to France and you try to buy a bottle of wine, it's almost exactly the same price as it is in my supermarket. You can have price controls then, and that's where you see how organization in commercial things starts distorting the price, because of course the Albert Heijn, our biggest grocery store in Holland, is setting the prices in all their shops exactly the same rate. And of course a huge distorter is some government that decides that there has to go a lot of money to farmers in France or to Greece in general, you know, to help the government, or to Germany or to whatever, because then the citizens of these countries are all going like, shit, we were trying to balance out these trade differences, and now my government is shuffling money around. You know, that sounds like a collusion. Or I don't want to make it sound criminal too fast, because of course there are benefits with aid, because you can, of course, it's the story, you can give a man fish, but you can also teach him how to fish, and if you can teach a region to prosper, how to do it themselves, then of course that's worth a lot of money to invest in, because you can go back later there and enjoy the wealth that they have created for themselves. But anyway, so that's how I think that the lesser you interfere with the value of currency and with the value of products, the more easily the value of your currency will be evened out, standardized. And of course you might guess that this is completely out of whack at the moment, because the banks are sitting on trillions of debt and are shuffling around billions and billions of dollars of subsidies in every direction, and it doesn't work. And the best thing would be, of course, I think, to stop it all. Just to stop right now. Put a normal interest rate on your central banks, and stop allowing banks, especially, to take possession of things that they cannot really afford, that they don't have the money to buy. And if that would work, if that would be affected in the US, all banks would go bankrupt immediately, and somehow, of course, the houses prices would collapse, but everybody would be able to buy a house. Or maybe I'm thinking too loosely, but that would be much better, because then you get the power of numbers in the control of your economy, and I think that's the best way to create a fiat money. If it doesn't have intrinsic value, then the best way to have money is to only create it, to perform the transaction, and let it disappear afterwards. That's what the banks are trying to do, but because it's top down, it just doesn't work.